Bill, in our last couple of minutes, I just wanted to look at and to draw some sort of contrast between where we are now and where we were several years ago, about 15 years ago, when the Bipartisan Policy Center sponsored a debt reduction task force chaired by Alice Rivlin and Pete Domenici. And I wish they were still with us now. And we were meeting at the same time as the Bowles-Simpson commission was meeting. I raise it because there's talk about a new fiscal commission now, and I hope that happens. But I was playing with a new toy that the CBO has on their website, an interactive that lets you sort of plug in deficit reduction paths, and just kind of looking at what you would need to stabilize the debt to GDP ratio, and it's about 6 trillion. You get about another trillion of interest savings, and that's what you need over 10 years. And the numbers seem familiar, so I went back, and it seems to me that in the first version of the Rivlin-Domenici task force, we found about 6 trillion worth of savings, and in Bowles-Simpson, they had about 4 trillion worth of savings. And I think there were a little bit of difference in the baseline we were using from what they were using. But what struck me was that in those days, that quantum of savings, 6 trillion or so, got the debt to GDP ratio down to 60%. That's what we were trying to do in Rivlin-Domenici. And I think Simpson-Bowles got there down to 65%. 6 trillion worth of policy savings today keeps the debt at 100% of GDP. So that's kind of, in my mind, a measure of the cost of delay. Any thoughts about where we are now versus where we were then?
Well, it's always been the situation that the sooner you act, the better off we are in dealing with our debt and our future debt. And that clearly made the case very strongly. If we'd acted back then, we'd be in a much better situation than we are today. It's going to get more difficult the longer we delay this, delay action. So all I can say is I agree with your numbers. I think I think that this requires some very difficult policy or very difficult decisions to make on the part of decision makers if they're going to be serious. My biggest concern at this age of where I am in my life cycle is that I think that we are kidding ourselves if we think that somehow we have nothing to worry about long term. I think this really does add to the debt burden of the future, and it's on my children and my grandchildren, and they're either going to pay. They're going to pay for this one way or the other, either through higher taxes, higher higher interest rates, or even worse, a lower standard of living. And the sooner we act, the better. It's just only going to get more difficult.